Hello guys, how you doing? My name is Robert Mitten. As you can see, I'm part of the C1 team. C1 is gonna be #1. I had a Class B CDL license for about 4 years. I just upgraded to a Class A. When it comes to experience, I have about 6 months experience. I found this company by a good friend of mine named Andy. He also helped my cousin get in named Ricardo. And we have a friend of mine named Twan. He's here with us. It's a great company to work for. It's a growing company. Also, my supervisor, Danny, he's the best. He's a real good guy, man. Hey, Danny. With all the other drivers, everybody here, we all get along. We work together as a team. That's pretty much it, guys. Just, you know, if you're interested, apply. It's a great company to work for. The staff is perfect. C1 is gonna be #1.
The early 2000s was a weird time for the NBA, a post-Bulls Jordan league that lacked an overall depth and talent, yet was the last premier era of the NBA big man. You had established superstars such as Shaquille O'Neal, Chris Webber, Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, and Alonzo Mourning. You had the up-and-comers such as Kenyon Martin, Marcus Camby, Ben Wallace, Dirk Nowitzki, Pau Gasol, Tyson Chandler, and Elton Brand. You even had the veteran Hall of Famers on their last leg, such as Hakeem Olajuwon, Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, Karl Malone, and Dikembe Mutombo. Truly a golden era of big man in every phrase of the word. And the big man we'll be focused on today would likely fit in the early 2000s up-and-comer bracket, Jermaine O'Neal. Drafted 17th overall straight out of high school in the historic 1996 NBA draft class that featured Kobe Bryant, Ray Allen, and Steve Nash. O'Neal became the youngest player to ever play in an NBA game at that time. His career lasted 17 seasons, playing for the Trailblazers, Pacers, Raptors, Heat, Celtics, Suns, and Warriors. After joining the Pacers for the 2000-2001 season, O'Neal's career hit an apex that lasted from the 2001-2002 season to the 06-07 campaign. This stretch included 6 straight All-Star appearances, 3 straight All-NBA teams from 2002 to 2004, he was second team in 2004, and a conference finals appearance in 2004. In an era stuffed with centers and power forwards, who ranged from high-quality starters to Hall of Famers, O'Neal was regarded as one of the best in the league during that time. As impressive as he was during his peak, was it enough for him to be considered for the Basketball Hall of Fame? As good as he was as a Pacer, the rest of his career was average at best and arrestable at worst, pun intended. He started in Portland for the 1996-97 season, where he played the next 4 seasons. These Portland teams made the playoffs each season he was there, and even made the conference finals back-to-back years in 99 and 2000. In 2000, they took the Lakers to 7 games, losing 89-84 in the historic game that featured the iconic Kobe to Shaq alley-oop in the closing minutes of the game. By the way, Portland was up by more than 10 points in the game. It was a very successful run for Portland, a run that O'Neal had little to nothing to do with. During his time with the Trailblazers, O'Neal never averaged over 13.5 minutes per game. His most impactful season came in 1998, where he averaged The early 2000s was a weird time for the NBA, a post-Bulls Jordan league that lacked an overall depth and talent, yet was the last premier era of the NBA big man. You had established superstars such as Shaquille O'Neal, Chris Webber, Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, and Alonzo Mourning. You had the up-and-comers such as Kenyon Martin, Marcus Camby, Ben Wallace, Dirk Nowitzki, Pau Gasol, Tyson Chandler, and Elton Brand. You even had the veteran Hall of Famers on their last leg, such as Hakeem Olajuwon, Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, Karl Malone, and Dikembe Mutombo. Truly a golden era of big man in every phrase of the word. And the big man we'll be focused on today would likely fit in the early 2000s up-and-comer bracket, Jermaine O'Neal. Drafted 17th overall straight out of high school in the historic 1996 NBA draft class that featured Kobe Bryant, Ray Allen, and Steve Nash. O'Neal became the youngest player to ever play in an NBA game at that time. His career lasted 17 seasons, playing for the Trailblazers, Pacers, Raptors, Heat, Celtics, Suns, and Warriors. After joining the Pacers for the 2000-2001 season, O'Neal's career hit an apex that lasted from the 2001-2002 season to the 06-07 campaign. This stretch included 6 straight All-Star appearances, 3 straight All-NBA teams from 2002 to 2004, he was second team in 2004, and a conference finals appearance in 2004. In an era stuffed with centers and power forwards, who ranged from high-quality starters to Hall of Famers, O'Neal was regarded as one of the best in the league during that time. As impressive as he was during his peak, was it enough for him to be considered for the Basketball Hall of Fame? As good as he was as a Pacer, the rest of his career was average at best and arrestable at worst, pun intended. He started in Portland for the 1996-97 season, where he played the next 4 seasons. These Portland teams made the playoffs each season he was there, and even made the conference finals back-to-back years in 99 and 2000. In 2000, they took the Lakers to 7 games, losing 89-84 in the historic game that featured the iconic Kobe to Shaq alley-oop in the closing minutes of the game. By the way, Portland was up by more than 10 points in the game. It was a very successful run for Portland, a run that O'Neal had little to nothing to do with. During his time with the Trailblazers, O'Neal never averaged over 13.5 minutes per game. His most impactful season came in 1998, where he averaged 4.5 points, 3.4 rebounds, and 1 block per game. As underwhelming as O'Neal's career was when he was with Portland, it's hard to place a ton of blame on him for his struggles. In a time where selecting a high school player was still considered a taboo move, he was a teenager playing with grown men. The center and forward positions were especially stacked for Portland, in a roster that featured Arvydas Sabonis, Rasheed Wallace, Scottie Pippen, Detlef Schrempf, and Brian Grant. Unless they're an instant generational talent, it's extremely hard for a young prospect to get playing time for an NBA team contending for a title. You even see this in today's NBA, with the Golden State Warriors still trying to figure out how to fit their younger prospects into the rotation. Hard to hold Jermaine's first 4 seasons against him. After the Pacers went into a mini rebuild parting ways with veterans Mark Jackson, Rick Smits, Chris Mullin, and head coach Larry Bird, they traded for O'Neal in 2000. He was put into their starting unit and instantly made huge strides, posting career highs in every major statistical category other than field goal percentage, which makes sense because he went from taking 3 to 4 shots per game to 10 plus. He would average 12.8 points, 9.8 rebounds, and 2.8 blocks for the 2000-2001 season. His next 6 seasons would be what defined his stardom, as he would team up with future Hall of Famer Reggie Miller and future Defensive Player of the Year Ron Artest. But with an aging Reggie Miller and the unpredictable personality that was Ron Artest, O'Neal ultimately became the best player and most valuable player for the Pacers during this time. He averaged 20.4 points, 9.9 rebounds, 2.1 assists, and 2.4 blocks per game, shooting 45.9% from the field between 2001 to 2007. He also had 39.3 win shares, 25.7 defensive, 13.6 offensive, a plus-minus of 1.7, 1.0 defensive, and 0.8 offensive, and a player efficiency rating of 20.3 in those seasons. To put these stats in context, one player who puts up similar numbers to O'Neal in today's game is Domantas Sabonis. While a much better passer than O'Neal ever was, and not quite the defender, Sabonis has 43.5 win shares, 25.8 offensive and 17.7 defensive, a plus-minus of 2.3, 1.3 offensive and 0.9 defensive, and a player efficiency rating of 19.3. Sabonis just recently finished his 7th season. O'Neal's success on the court translated to the success of the team. The Pacers would win 312 games to 262 games lost and make the playoffs 5 out of 6 possible seasons from 2001 to 2002 to 2006 and 07. His play would get him into 6 straight All-Star games, the 2001 to 2002 Most Improved Player Award, and 3 All-NBA teams. His best season was in 2003 to 2004, where he averaged 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 2.6 blocks. He started 78 games that season, made second-team All-NBA, and finished third in MVP voting. The Pacers would go 61-21 that year and make it to the conference finals, where they lost in 6 games to the 2004 NBA champion Detroit Pistons. By 2004, O'Neal was certainly in the conversation with the best big men in the league. At that time, that conversation included players like Shaquille O'Neal, Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, and Dirk Nowitzki, 4 players with Hall of Fame resumes, if they're not in already. But it would be the 2004-05 season that would define O'Neal's career, and not in the way anyone would have hoped. The Pacers started off the season hot with a 7-2 start, which would have projected them to finish the season 64-18, 3 wins better than the last season of 61-21. Then, in a game against the Pistons on November 19, 2004, it all came to a crashing halt. The Pacers had a commanding 97-82 lead over their division rival in the closing minute of the road game in Detroit. After a hard foul at the rim on Ben Wallace by Ron Artest, an enraged Wallace came after Artest. Wallace had to be held back by teammates and security for multiple minutes, while Artest was moved by the scoring table, where he started to lay down. As Artest laid down on the scoring table, a fan threw a drink at him, which instigated a brawl that caused Artest and teammate Steven Jackson to run into the stands and throw punches at the fan. This incident was ultimately dubbed Malice at the Palace, a notorious brawl that transcended basketball and changed the landscape of the NBA forever. As some fans eventually started to run onto the court, O'Neal punched a man in the jaw who was running at him. He was subsequently charged with assault and battery for his role in the incident and was sentenced to a year of community service. He was initially suspended 25 games for the incident, but an appeal knocked that down to 15 games. Though O'Neal had a limited/non-instigatory role in the Malice at the Palace, it certainly left a black eye on his legacy as an NBA player. Not something that bodes well for a Hall of Fame case. Once O'Neal got back from a suspension in December of 2004, he was never really the same player. On top of the suspension, he had to miss multiple games during that season with a lingering shoulder injury. He finished that season with 44 games played, and the Pacers finished with a 44-38 record. After beating the Celtics in the first round, they were ironically bounced in the semifinals by the Pistons. While O'Neal was able to make the All-Star team for 3 straight seasons following the Malice at the Palace, his play and ability to stay on the floor started to seriously decline. In his final full season with Indiana in 2007-08, he played in 42 games, starting in 34 of them. He averaged 13.6 points, 6.7 rebounds, and 2.1 blocks in just 28.7 minutes per game, all sizable drops for the numbers he put up in his prime. 2007-08 was the first season he wouldn't make the All-Star team since 2000-2001, and he wouldn't make any more of them for the rest of his career. He was traded to the Raptors in the offseason 2008. By the 2008 All-Star break, O'Neal had missed nearly a quarter of the season and had lost his starting spot to up-and-coming center Andre Bargnani. He would be traded to the Heat later that season and would finish his 41 games in Toronto, averaging 13.5 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 blocks. His 2009-10 season in Miami would be his last decent season in terms of his health and productivity. He would play 70 games, averaging 13.6 points, 6.9 rebounds, and 1.4 blocks while playing 28.4 minutes per game. A variety of injuries would further plague him for the rest of his career after that season. He played with the Celtics, Suns, and Warriors up until his final season in 2013-14. From 2010 to 2014, he would play 148 games, 51 games started, posting averages of 7.1 points, 5.1 rebounds, and 1.3 blocks. For the second half of his career, you could argue O'Neal was nothing more than a role player. Despite the late bloom and sour ending of his career, how did O'Neal compare to the other big man superstars of his generation during his prime? Remember, the Hall of Fame is voted by the sports writers. From 2001 to 2007, the top-tier power forwards and centers were Shaquille O'Neal, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, and Dirk Nowitzki. Here's how O'Neal's stats match up against theirs, as you see the graphic here. From 2002 to 2007, Jermaine O'Neal shot almost 46% from the field, three-point percentage not great at 18.4, and 20.4 points per game, among other notable statistics. Dirk Nowitzki, much better, 24.6 points, 2-point percentage of 49.6, efficient field goal percentage of 51.3. Kevin Garnett, more in points per game, 2-point percentage is better at 50.5, efficient field goal percentage 50.1, free throw percentage much better at 80%. Tim Duncan, 2002 to 2007. Surprisingly, not that much more points per game than Jermaine O'Neal. 21.7 points, 50.8 field goal percentage, efficient field goal percentage of 50.9, total rebounds of 11.8. And Shaquille O'Neal, absolutely dominant. 24.1 points, efficient field goal percentage. This is insane. 58.4, 2.2 blocks, and a field goal percentage of 58.4. How bad was his free throw percentage? Pretty darn bad, 51.5. While each of those player stats are clearly a bit superior to O'Neal's, it's surprising to see how close he comes up to matching up with them. Shaq and Tim Duncan are top 10 players in the history of the NBA, and Dirk and KG are also considered amongst the best this league has ever seen. O'Neal is second in blocks amongst them with 2.4, just under Duncan's 2.5. The big difference between O'Neal and these four players was sustainability and team success. During this window, Shaq won 3 of his 4 NBA titles, 2 with the Lakers, 1 with the Heat. Duncan won 3 of his 5 titles. Dirk and KG would go on to win a title later in their careers. Also, O'Neal's only real case for the Hall of Fame is his 6 All-Star seasons. Shaq had an 8-year prime going into the 2001 season. Duncan won a championship in 1999, and he was able to develop himself into a championship-level contributor even when he passed his prime, making multiple All-Star, All-NBA, and All-Defensive teams when he was 35-plus years old. KG blossomed at an All-Star 5 years prior to 2001 and was an All-Star for 5 of his next 6 seasons in Boston after getting traded by Minnesota in the 2007 offseason. Dirk was just entering his prime around the same time O'Neal was and was able to extend it nearly another decade. To be fair, those 4 are some of the greatest to ever play the game. So just because O'Neal's career didn't play out the same as theirs doesn't mean he doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. Some of the center/power forward Tier 2 and Tier 3 stars during that time were Ben Wallace, Chris Webber, and Elton Brand. Here's how O'Neal's numbers measure against them. Jermaine O'Neal, once again, 20.4 points per game, efficient field percentage. This is where it kind of hurts him. It's only at 46%, so he wasn't that efficient of a player. Blocks, excellent, 2.4, and then fouls per game, 3.5. For Elton Brand, 20.4 points per game, efficient field goal percentage. It's better than Jermaine O'Neal, 51.5. Free throw percentage, it's still better, 75.2, whereas Jermaine O'Neal was 73.5. How about Chris Webber? Actually, Chris averaged less points per game than Jermaine O'Neal, 19.6. Player fouls, 3. Free throw percentage, 71. Total rebounds, 9.3. So Jermaine O'Neal actually had more rebounds than Chris Webber. For Ben Wallace, not a great offensive player by any stretch of the imagination. Only 7.9 points per game. But here's what hurts Jermaine O'Neal again. 47 efficient field goal percentage to just 46 for Jermaine. Ben Wallace stands out because he had little to no offensive game. He was, however, one of the most prominent centers in the league during that time frame. He was maybe the best defensive center in the league, making every all-defensive team during that stretch with 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards. He also made 5 All-NBA teams and was recently inducted into the Hall of Fame. The more apt comparisons to O'Neal would be Chris Webber and Elton Brand. All 3 have similar stats during this time. 2010 players who thrived in the post, pick and roll, and mid-range. Webber, who's now a Hall of Famer, had the better career of the 3. Like O'Neal, he struggled to find his place early in his career, bouncing from the Warriors to the Bullets/Wizards before ultimately landing with the Kings. But despite this situation, Webber still managed to put up all-star level numbers. From 1993 to 2001, he averaged 21.8 points, 10.2 rebounds, 4.3 assists, 1.8 blocks, and 1.5 steals, shooting 50% from the field. He was also a couple questionable calls away from making the finals. Elton Brand, who's not in the Hall of Fame, has the most similar career arc to O'Neal. He basically had an 8-year apex from his rookie year in 1999 to 2000 to 2006 to 07. A couple games into the 2007-8 season, he tore his Achilles and was never quite the same player after that. He was an effective role player for the next 5 to 6 seasons, but not the star that he once was. He was in essence the same dilemma as O'Neal when it comes to making a Hall of Fame case. Was he dominant for a long enough time to justify him being inducted? After breaking his career down in full, it's time to answer the big question. Does Jermaine O'Neal belong in the Basketball Hall of Fame? To answer a question with a question, would the Basketball Hall of Fame's legitimacy be in question if Jermaine O'Neal was inducted into it? The answer is no. O'Neal had a fine career, a good career, better than most NBA players and even most athletes can say that they had. At his absolute peak, you could have made the case that he was one of the best 10 to 15 players in the world. But as good as his peak was, it lasted between 3 to 6 seasons, probably closer to 3. The rest of his career was at best a high-end role player and at worst an injury-prone scrub. The Malice at the Palace definitely put a permanent stain on an overall good NBA career because, once again, it's voted by the sports writers, and when you have negative publicity around you, that can follow you when it comes to Hall of Fame voting. But let's be honest, it's not like it's the only thing keeping him from being a Hall of Famer. Derrick Rose had an incredible peak of his career. He was an MVP who took his team to the conference finals. Do his 3 All-Star seasons put him in the Hall of Fame? Penny Hardaway made 3 All-NBA teams and was the second best player on a team that made the NBA Finals. Does he deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? Not to rag on O'Neal, Hardaway, and Rose's careers, they were all good players who had some great seasons that deserve to be remembered. But when you think of the Basketball Hall of Fame, you think of the absolute best. Guys like Kareem, Bill Russell, Kobe are all players you immediately think of when thinking about the Basketball Hall of Fame because of their prolonged success. Even Hall of Famers during O'Neal's era like Shaq, Dirk, Tim Duncan, and Kevin Garnett were great because of their greatness spanned nearly 2 straight decades. Even during his peak, O'Neal was never quite on the level as those 4. Ultimately, O'Neal had a respectable career that deserves to be remembered, but he just didn't play like a Hall of Famer for long enough to be one. But what do you think? Should Jermaine O'Neal be included into the Hall of Fame consideration? Make sure to comment below and subscribe to Sports Broadcast Solutions. With the peak of Coors Field hysteria, the 5-time All-Star and 4-time Silver Slugger winner was beloved by Rockies fans for his fantastic play on both offense and defense. One of the greatest Rockies of all time, his success has consistently been downplayed because of his home stadium. Helton's Hall of Fame case has been widely debated among the baseball community, with no conclusive decision. Just recently, this past January, the voters almost elected him into baseball immortality. He received over 72% of the vote for Cooperstown induction, but he needed another 3% of the vote to get into the Hall of Fame. This video will look into what factors help and hurt his case to earn his plaque in New York, and whether or not it's realistic for Helton to eventually make the Hall. Let's first do a statistics breakdown. Helton played for a very long time, nearly 2 decades, all for the Rockies, and was never an easy out once he arrived in the league. Through his first 10 seasons in Major League Baseball, Helton not only managed to walk more than strike out in 8 of the 10 aforementioned seasons, a very much appreciated quality in a young player, but he also managed an OPS, or on-base percentage plus slugging, above 1, settling in at a remarkable 1.04 OPS for the entire span. Oh, and let's go back to Helton having more walks than strikeouts. During his first season of playing in at least 100 games, Helton struck out 54 times and just walked 53 times. From 2000 to 2008, Helton walked more than striking out, with his worst season, quote-unquote, being the 1999 campaign, where he recorded 68 walks to 77 punch-outs. Out of all the first basemen who played at least 1,000 games from 1997 to 2013, his first and last year in the league, Todd Helton leads the pack by 4 points in OPS, beating out Hall of Famer Jeff Bagwell and future Hall of Famer Albert Pujols. One of his biggest strengths, his vision, was the catalyst that led to his success. His magnum opus was his 2000 season, where he hit for the percentage triple crown, leading the league in all 3 major stats: on base percentage, batting average, and slugging percentage. He hit a ludicrous .372, winning a batting title and having the 3rd highest single-season batting average from 1990 to the 2000 decade. During that decade, he actually tied for 3rd in terms of batting average. The only 2 players ahead of him are his teammate, in my opinion, the greatest Rocky of all time, Larry Walker, and all-time great Tony Gwynn with his abbreviated shade base for .400. This came along with plenty of pop as well, slugging almost .700 with 103 extra base hits. In fact, this was the fourth most extra bases in MLB history and second most in the NL ever. It was also his breakout season, netting him his first All-Star game, but his MVP candidacy was probably hindered not only by his youth, not having been an established star, but also what is commonly referred to as the Coors effect. This is when accolades and statistics from Rockies players are seen with less legitimacy due to the thin air in Colorado, which allows for the ball to fly further than anywhere else. This has only increased as time gone on, with the Rockies playing their home games at Coors Field, with sabermetrics putting a higher emphasis on regulating stadium factors. Older players also benefited more prior to the humiditor era. Beginning last season, all 30 MLB teams now have to store the game balls to control the inconsistencies between them. Humiditators work by bringing baseballs to an average humidity, which means in a dry park they will become more humid and heavier. Regardless of stadium, Todd Helton's hitting stats were some of the best in the league over a 5-year span. His 2000 to 2004 stretch of dominance beats out the best of his contemporaries. He once again beats out Pujols, Lance Berkman, and Jason Giambi, some of the best first basemen of his era in terms of OPS. He also paces the group in homers, RBIs, and has the best walk-to-strikeout ratio of the group. Now let's take a look at his defensive stats. None of this era has even been discussed. One of Helton's best traits as well, his ability to play very well on both sides of the ball. His 3 Gold Gloves were no mistake. He ranks near the top of the leaderboards all time in WAR and defensive WAR for first baseman, landing 14th in career WAR and 4th in defensive WAR compared to others who have played as many games of all time. He falls second since integration, just behind Albert Pujols, and of course integration means since 1947. It's important to know that defensive wins above replacement is based on calculations that give value to positions, making a premium positions like shortstop or center field worth a lot more than a position like first base. For players who play DH and first base primarily, unless your name is pretty much Keith Hernandez, the more games they play, the lower their defensive WAR goes, almost in spite of good defense. This just means that if you don't play defense, for example, a designated hitter like David Ortiz, your defensive WAR becomes virtually non-existent and in the negative column. Anyway, Helton clocks in at -5 defensive WAR behind Pujols, who is known to be one of the best first base of all time defensively as well, with his -4.1 mark. While at their peaks, Pujols may have been the best first baseman defensively, which is definitely no slight to Helton. But let's talk about the great defensive metrics when it comes to Helton. Besides winning 3 Gold Glove awards, Helton's 9.5 range factor per game is second all time. His 90 career zone runs place him in 4th in MLB history. If you don't know what zone runs are, it basically means how many plays a first baseman made versus how many times the ball was hit in his general direction or his zone, quote unquote. At one time, Helton was first among all first basemen in defensive games played, at first base, putouts, and assists. The crafty lefty could simply sweep up any ball in the dirt that was thrown from his infield counterpart. In other words, he was great at picking it. Now let's compare him to Paul Konerko. Another comparable player to Helton is Konerko, albeit his prime starting after Helton's era. They are both strong offensive first basemen looking to be enshrined in the Hall of Fame. While Konerko and Helton may be similar in circumstance, they have significantly different cases. An easy way to check whether a player is on a Hall of Fame trajectory is to look at career WAR. While it's not a strict guideline, a Hall of Fame bound player, regardless of position, typically hovers in the 50 to 60 range. Helton easily meets this criteria with a very impressive 61.8 WAR throughout his career, while Konerko falls well short at only 28.1. Konerko may have been a cornerstone to a World Series winning team in 2005 and the bigger name with more homers, but other than that, he simply doesn't compare statistically to the Todd father. He crushes Konerko in all rare stats with over 100 points on OPS, more than Konerko, and still beats him handily when field adjusted, with a 133 OPS plus compared to only 112 for Paulie. Also, as shown before, he is one of the best defensive first basemen, while advanced statistics paint Konerko in a much different light. Konerko finished his career with a -17.5 defensive wins above replacement, not even in the same area code as Helton. Konerko will almost certainly miss the Hall of Fame because of those reasons, while Helton should be included because of them. If you're wondering, Helton hit 369 career home runs. Konerko, or Paulie as White Sox fans remember him, has a much more impressive 439 lifetime dingers. Konerko is a lifetime 279 hitter, whereas Hilton finished with a very impressive 316 final clip. As you might expect, Helton's slugging percentage is much better than Konerko, 539 to 486. Now, let's do his comparison to Larry Walker. Helton's true contemporary to Hall of Fame contention is probably Larry Walker, his teammate who made the Hall of Fame recently. Overall, Walker is probably the better player according to the stats, but he also had outside factors help make him into the Hall of Fame. Walker played a more important position, did not play his entire career during the steroid era, which of course is about 1997 to 2007, and played some of his prime outside of Colorado. Not playing in the steroid era might have helped Walker's Hall of Fame case, as he put up dominant offensive numbers before the peak of the steroid era, for example 1997 to 2007. Walker also slightly outclasses Helton with awards, claiming an MVP in '97 and 4 more Gold Gloves than Helton in his career at a more difficult position as well. Plus stats, or adjusted stats, also help Walker more than Helton due to his time outside of Coors. Even at the age of 38, Walker hit .289 for a 2005 St. Louis Cardinals team that won 100 games. Walker began his career with the Expos, and while not quite the same hitter in Canada as in Coors, he finished within the top 5 in MVP during the 1992 season. As an Expo during the beginning of his career, Walker's 1994 Expos might have won the World Series if not for the owners ending the season with a strike. Regardless, Walker hit .322 for the Expos that year. Helton never spent any time away from the Denver franchise, although the Red Sox almost traded for him prior to the 2007 season. It should be noted, though, that Helton's OPS away from Coors Field is .855, better than former MVPs Christian Yelich and Josh Donaldson over similar amounts of games. No matter where he played, his bat was going to make an impact on the game. In 4,612 road plate appearances, the slugging first baseman at .287, .386, .469, with 142 home runs. His .855 OPS away from his home ballpark is higher than the road OPS of Hall of Famers Dave Winfield, .841, Eddie Murray, .838, Rickey Henderson, .836, Tony Gwynn, .835, Al Kaline, and George Brett, .826, among others. In other words, when it comes to Todd Helton, his OPS away from his home ballpark is better than players already in Cooperstown. How about this? Away from Coors Field, Helton's road on-base percentage is better than such Hall of Famers as Rod Carew, Eddie Matthews, Vladimir Guerrero, Honus Wagner, Tony Gwynn, and a slew of others. How about his postseason stats of comparison to other teams? Todd Helton's Rockies were basically pitiful during his career. They only made the postseason twice, with their magical run to the World Series in 2007 being something we'll most likely never see again, hence why it's called Rocktober and their amazing winning streak. If Helton had put up fantastic playoff numbers, it definitely would help his Hall of Fame case. Still, Mike Trout is most likely a Hall of Famer with terrible all-time postseason numbers and a very limited sample size. If Shohei Ohtani continues with his Babe Ruth-esque performances on the diamond as a pitcher and in the dish as a hitter, he'll be a no-doubt Hall of Famer even if he never plays in the postseason. If Helton had managed to put up any kind of impactful numbers, it would have helped his case. As it currently stands, Helton's career playoff batting average of .211 is very poor. In 15 career playoff games, he didn't hit a single home run. He played very well during Game 163 of the 2007 one-game playoff against San Diego, but that box score doesn't count towards the postseason numbers. In fact, there are examples of players making it almost exclusively because of postseason moments, such as Bill Mazeroski and Jack Morris, but baseball is not a sport where a single player can make enough of an impact to carry a player through the postseason. Helton also only made the playoffs 2 times in total in his career, so he didn't have many opportunities to do much in general in October. Still, it does hurt his case that the Rockies made the World Series in spite of him, not because of him. Is that why Barry Bonds is outside of Cooperstown? Nah. Belko and the steroid controversy is the main reason he's not in the Hall of Fame, But Bonds also had his postseason struggles prior to his fantastic 2002 World Series run with the San Francisco Giants. But let's take Larry Walker's postseason stats into account. His 1995 postseason with Colorado was very forgettable, but his postseason numbers in his late 30s were very eye-opening. During the 2004 World Series, the 37-year-old Walker batted .357 as a 37-year-old with 2 home runs in the series. Helton, meanwhile, was several years younger than Walker during the 2007 Rockies playoff run. Even in 2009, Helton batted just .188 with no extra base hits. During the 2004 postseason, Walker belted 6 home runs during 3 different playoff series. What am I trying to say? For Larry Walker, playing on a different team and playing well with that team can establish credibility. The Coors effect hurts Helton much more than someone like Walker because Helton's entire 17 years in Major League Baseball was spent playing in the high altitude. There may be controversy about their legitimacy with playing at Coors, but there is no doubt the stats Helton put up are extremely impressive. The Coors effect is probably the strongest argument against him, and it only has gotten stronger as advanced stats have dampened his original stats. In conclusion, Todd Helton was one half of a lethal duo in Colorado with prime Larry Walker alongside him in the lineup. They both put up elite offensive and defensive stats, despite the adjusted stats making them slightly less impactful. While Helton doesn't have the hardware and accolades that Walker has, he's a homegrown career stat leader for the franchise. According to Jay Jaffe's JAWS system of evaluating peak wins above replacement, Helton is 15th all-time among qualified first basemen. That's higher than Harmon Killebrew and Fred McGriff, with McGriff recently being elected into the Hall. No offense to McGriff, but the analytics say Helton was much better offensively than the crime dog. Also, you can make the argument that the 2000 MVP should have gone to Helton and not Jeff Kent. Helton finished with a Baseball Reference wins above replacement metric of 8.9, while Kent was only 7.2. While Kent's Giants won the National League West Division, Helton's place certainly wasn't the reason why the Rockies failed to make the playoffs that year. Helton batted .353 away from Coors Field that season, and the 4-time Silver Slugger led the league in both slugging percentage and batting average. Did not winning the 2000 MVP award hurt his chances at being in Cooperstown? Nah, but an MVP certainly would have made his resume seem more intriguing to the voters. Quite frankly, Helton was arguably the best first baseman of his era. That includes Albert Pujols. From 1997 to 2013, Helton led all National League first basemen in games played, runs scored, hits, doubles, runs batted in, triples, and walks. He was also second all-time in home runs. In a 5-year span from 2000 to 2004, Helton's OPS plus stat was third behind Barry Bonds and Pujols, and from 2000 to 2005, Helton's Baseball Reference wins above replacement metric was third behind Alex Rodriguez and Bonds. And although Helton's batting prowess usually never transitioned into October, he was a main reason why the Rockies went 21-1 in their last 22 games to advance to the 2007 World Series. In a 15-game stretch from the end of the season until the one-game playoff against San Diego, batted .377 with a Helton be in the Hall of Fame sooner more than later. Make sure to comment below and subscribe to Sports Broadcast Solutions.
So one more time, we're doing a scissors, and then a quick double tap. And accelerating away at pace.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another production of SBS, a broadcasting network for everyone. It's a makeup tonight, so I'm on videography and play-by-play duties today. Here are the lineups brought to you by SBS, a broadcasting network for everyone. Technically, the home team today, the Chicago Dutch Lions. This was actually Chicago City's home game, but we're playing at Chicago Dutch Lions' home pitch tonight. Between the pipes, number 0, Daniel Salazar. Number 6, Preston Huitron. Number 10, Jared Sanave. Number 11, Alex Barter. Number 14, Eliam Meyer. Number 17, Christian Marquez. And for the visiting Chicago City team, Ernest Mensah, Julian Cisneros. As here we go. It's played out to midfield. Kicked forward. And off the head. It's looking that time for Mensah, then past midfield. It's over that time to Sudeth. Good play that time by Who. Over to the sideline, kicked around. Played out to the 30-yard line. Both goals are deep in the end zones. When I say they're at the 30-yard line, means they're 40 yards back. Back to the goalkeeper and Flowers, who was off the foot that time of Ender. Now over to the far touchline. Kick forward, trying to get it to the other sideline. Read well by the Dutch Lions, and the goalkeeper and Salazar will take it. Booted forward, pretty decent boot, and the Lions will be after it. Kicked over to the far touchline off the foot of Sanadu, and right-footed boot, 60 yards away from the goal. Kicked past midfield by Chicago Lions. Over to the touchline, played by Chicago City. On the start with good move by Who. Now 50 yards from the goal. Right-footed boot. 30. Half Test 1, test 2. There we go. It's back. Don't know what's going on with this camera. Okay. In the 6th minute, still no score. Sorry about that, everybody that's watching. I'm on my own tonight. Off the chest and cleared that time by Sinanu. Played right now by Dutch Lions. And then it'll be kicked back to Chicago City. Chicago City with it now, off the right foot. 40 yards from the goal, out in front, shot, partially blocked by Chicago Dutch Lions. At least I thought it was, but they're going to say it was a clean shot, went wide. Both teams with a shot, both missed. Picked up by Dutch Lions. Chicago trying to steal. And then kicked forward by Dutch Lions. Sinanu after it. Now played by Lucas Ender. As Ender sends it over that time to Sudeth. Sudeth kick. Sudeth with it on the sideline as he gets it back to his defense. Booted over to the other touchline. Off the foot, played by Chicago City, sent forward, retrieved. Good job by retrieving it by Mensah. Here comes Chicago City. 20 yards from the goal. Forward pass, kicked away by Dutch Lions. Forward kick, booted over near the touchline. No one home to get that one. It'll be a throw-in for who? Early on in the match, in the 9th minute, as who looking for somebody, and he finds someone on the touchline. Played right now by Dutch Lions. It was played by Meyer. Out near midfield at the touchline. Dutch Lions with it still. Double teamed. Sent forward. Cleared by Chicago, now in Dutch Lions end. Back and forth we go, a ping-pong battle right now, and it's slightly won by Dutch Lions. On the touchline, right foot, and a foul committed by Chicago City. Free kick awarded for Dutch Lions. Another foul registered on the stat sheet against Sinanu for the season. As a free kick at an opportune area for Dutch Lions, placed just outside the 25. About 36 yards from scoring if he wants to try to get it straight on net. Up in the air, trying to boot it off the volley. Loose ball, shot, blocked that time by Sinanu. Looking to clear and does. A lot of topspin on that ball near the sideline. Going after it is 2 Dutch Lions players. City argues it was last touched by the home team Dutch Lions, but the ref says the away team touched it. In between the 40 and the 50, beautiful move. And then kicked forward that time by City. Now to the sideline. Mensah with it, tap and go, trying to do a give and go. That time to Mensah. Mensah after it, now over to Salazar on his right foot. High arching ball. Headed away by Dutch Lions. Inadvertent header as it goes to Chicago City. At the midway line, it's a beautiful campus here at Aurora University at Sporting Complex, Spartan facility. At the 35, played over near the touchline. Kicked forward, off the leg. Beautiful pass, just really hard to handle that one. It was a line drive pass off the foot. And played right now by Salazar as he kicks it forward. Remember, both goals are 10 yards away from the pylon, the end zone line. So when you kick it to the 50, it means it's a 60-yard kick. Kicked over to the 46. Played right now by Dutch Lions. And it's last touch by Dutch Lions. Playing it will be Lucas Ender. He gives it out to his goalkeeper, the starter in Flowers. Flowers had a shutout against FC Wichita to maintain the perfect unbeaten season for Chicago. They need a win in their last two to have the perfect undefeated regular season of 12-0-0. Need to win today, and then on the road to Wichita, 11-hour bus ride. If they avoid losing their last two matches, they would have an undefeated season, which isn't rare in USL 2. One of the teams in USL 2 is undefeated, but they have 5 ties. More on that later, but go on the standings to the USL 2 website, and you'll see for yourself. Fort Wayne with 2 ties, 9 wins, no losses. Chicago, though, the perfect undefeated season as they beat Des Moines twice, who's in the top 5 in the power ranking. Chicago, of course, number 1. Header over to the touchline. And it was played that time by Vieira. Now over to midfield. Sananu with it. One of their better players this season. Sidney Warden, you can make the argument, at least in terms of total goals scored, their best offensive player. But there's a lot of guys that can score. A.J. Franklin. We've seen other guys like Torrella score. But Warden, with some big-time goals, especially that goal to make it 2-1 against Des Moines Menace. But Chicago might have to play Des Moines Menace again if they keep winning in the playoffs, and they might have to play them before the championship match. But more on that later. Chicago needs to win today to maintain the perfect undefeated season. A tie, they're still alive for an undefeated record. And then back over to Sananu. Booted over, looking for Ender. Ender gets it. Little tap kick. Dutch Lions almost stole, and they almost stole it again, back-to-back. But Chicago City, that's the reason they're 10-0, among other reasons. They win a lot of loose soccer ball battles. To the 30-yard line, 40 yards from the goal. Played by Chicago, right-footed boot. Played right now by Axel Alejandre, now near the far touchline. Alejandre back with it, and then sent over to the touchline. Chicago taking their time, setting up what they like. Off the foot. And then booted out in front. Another try, Salazar there to read it. Good read by Salazar. We've seen him play at both the United Premier Soccer League for Chicago Nation FC, playing tonight in the USL 2 for the Dutch Lions. Salazar was on that Chicago Nation team, went to the round of 16 last year in the fall, but they lost to Detroit United. And for the spring season, they gave Detroit United a taste of their own medicine, demolished them 5-0. Chicago will play on the 23rd against FCY New York with a chance to go to the Final Four in the UPSL. Meanwhile, Chicago City playing Dutch Lions today. Dutch Lions a tough year, just 2-8. Looking to upset and end the undefeated season for Chicago City. Right-footed boot inside the 40. Tapped in front, good pass. Dutch Lions looking to steal. Booted over to the touchline, played by Mensah. Mensah, hesitation move. Help comes on defense from the Dutch Lions. The Chicago City Lions still with it. City with it. As it was kicked off the foot that time of Sudeth over to the touchline. Booted over to the other one. Sinanu with it. He plays it to the far touchline, kicked over. Lead pass, right in stride. Help comes, though, from Dutch Lions. Double teamed. Can he break through it? Dutch Lions had it briefly. Chicago gets it right back. Alejandre with it. Sent forward. Retrieved by Dutch Lions. Loose ball. Chicago after it. Shot! And a beautiful save by Salazar. Incredible save, maintaining the 0-0 draw. Near midfield. Played right now by Dutch Lions. Inside the midway line. Dutch Lions with limited opportunities today, and that's what Chicago City's defense has done pretty much all season long. It's just impossible to score 2 or more goals against them. You got to give credit to that young Springfield team who had a tough year, but they did score 2 goals on Chicago, both off set pieces, both off corner kicks. Chicago, in their first match of the year, they hung on. After blowing a 2-0 lead, they won 4-2. But it's impressive that Springfield was able to do that because no other team has done that. That shot partially blocked. Good job getting in the way of that, but corner kick awarded for the Dutch Lions. Up in the air, headed forward, that time by Chicago. And waiting for the call, might be a handball against Dutch Lions, and it is. No harm done, just a free kick outside of danger for Chicago City. To the touchline, played by Chicago, booted over to the 40, reading it well as Dutch Lions. Sent forward, Sinanu was trying to get body positioning. Waiting for the call, offside against Dutch Lions. Chat's live, let us know if it's too wide or too tight. Trying to find that nice in-between balance for everybody watching today. We had a full crew last night, but Mother Nature just wasn't cooperating, so now we're down to the one-man band. Back over to the goalkeeper. Flowers with it. Right-footed boot. Booted over to the touchline. Off the head. Kicked forward. Off the body. Chicago City partially blocking the way that passing lane. Alejandre, and then kicked forward by Chicago. Trying to find Mensah. Throw-in awarded. Chicago Dutch Lions. Dutch Lions in the orange. Chicago City in the blue. As that throw-in that time by Santiago Bucalini And it'll be Chicago ball. Throw in by Mensah. 40 yards from the goal, then sent forward by Dutch Lions. Chicago City had it briefly. Now played by Alex Berger. Sent forward. Dutch Lions after. They just haven't had a lot of possessions this first half. Off the foot. And a throw-in awarded for Chicago's Michael Rogalski. He played in that tough 1-0 loss against Steel City FC. Incredibly, Chicago hit the post twice and the crossbar twice in one half, and they still didn't score. And then Steel City scored off a free kick, courtesy of Brandon Camacho, and they almost scored again. Some key saves by Alex Vednoff avoided a 2-0, 3-0 loss. Mensah with it. Right in stride, Salazar getting in the way of that shot, just off the foot of Salazar. Corner kick awarded for Chicago City. Going after it will be number 10, Max Vieira. But the set piece leading the way will be Ernest Mensah Jr. As you see on your screen. Nice wide shot for the corner kick. It's that beautiful Spartan complex in Aurora, right off Orchard Road. Aurora University is Division III school. Up in the air. Header. And a goal for Chicago. They were the home team last night. Mother Nature didn't cooperate. They're the away team today. And a goal for Chicago off the set piece. 1-0 Chicago City. Out of midfield. Played right now by Dutch Lions. Looking to answer. And the unbeaten season. The complete unbeaten season. Perfect. Still in play. Very much in play for Chicago City. Looking to go 11-0-0 tonight. At the touchline, kick back. Dutch Lions with it, sent forward, off the body. Turnaround kick that time. Off the body. Chicago City with it. From one touch line to the other. And just out of play. Mensah was after it. But a beautiful set piece. Fantastic one, in fact. And it's 1-0 in favor of Chicago City. Salazar will play it as it went past the end line. Kicked over by Salazar. Dutch Lions, one of the few possessions they've had in this half. Back over to Salazar. Little tap kick. Look at that. No look one. Right in stride, right on target. It's a good looking possession. One of their best one of the day by Dutch Lions. Right in stride. Flowers after it right in front. No one home to bang it home. Flowers has to get back in his spot. Looking for the penalty kick, but the ref says play on. Break, possibly, for Chicago City. It's a nice looking possession, though, by Dutch Lions. They've had so few of them today. I don't mind the blind pass there. You're hoping it goes off a foot, and then the trailer could possibly get the rebound goal. And I don't mind the blind pass because they've had so few opportunities today as Dutch Lions. Thought about going after it with Sudeth, but it'll be, well, he can't go after it because it's a throw-in for Dutch Lions. It'll be lucky number 13 and Angel Barriga. And it's a free kick awarded for Dutch Lions. Tap kick. It's over to Bucalini. Then to the touchline. Barriga plays it. Barriga taking his time, then resets out in front. And deflected away by Chicago City. Tapped over, trying to keep it in is Shy City. And now 50 yards away from the goal, Dutch Lions with it. Getting in the way of that. The Chicago City. Kicked up, straight in the air, off the head. And here comes City. It's off the foot that time of Cisneros. As a throw-in. And then kicked back over to Dutch Lions. Barriga on his left. Past the midway line. Trying to find Barriga and does. Barriga with it. Great slide tackle. Barriga had a half inch on the defender, but good job getting in the way of that. Slide tackling out of bounds. Played right now by Dutch Lions. That was Eliam Meyer. As it's tapped forward, Meyer, the intended target, he'll get it on his left foot, switching to the right. Meyer with a nice move. Left-footed boot out in front, no one home to bang it home. And getting it and falling to the turf is the goalkeeper in Flowers. Flowers had a shutout against Wichita, working on another one today with a 1-0 lead. Off the set piece, that's where we stand. 1-0 lead for Chicago City. They played at a lot of different places lately. They started the year at Lions for Hope as their home pitch. Then they played a couple at Illinois Institute of Technology. Last night they were at Loyola University Hoyne Field, but Mother Nature, it just wasn't in the card last night. And now they're here in Aurora. Technically their home match, but they're on Chicago Dutch Lions' home pitch. Dutch Lions with limited opportunities today. Barriga with a nice move. Getting it past Sudeth. Past the touch line out in front. And the intended target that time was Luke Bianco. As it's played right now by Flowers. Flowers, underhand pass. Sananu plays it. Left-footed boot. Off the foot. And then kicked forward, and time to Sudeth at midfield, past the 40. Out in front, trying to split the D. Loose ball, who will win it? Dutch Lions briefly won it, now to Mensah. Mensah with it, right-footed boot, right in stride, chance for Chicago City. Out in front, chance, and a goal! Cisneros scores! And it might be an early dagger against the hopes of the Chicago Dutch Lions fans. 2-0 lead for Chicago City. Great pass. Cisneros on the finish. 2-0 lead for the technical away team in Chicago City. That's not what I wanted. In the 30th minute, Chicago leads 2-0. Dutch Lions with it off the left foot. Just the problem with Dutch Lions, it's just hard to play soccer when you just don't have the ball. And when you're playing a team as good as Chicago City, you got to find a way to get the ball back, win some loose battles. Chicago's just won pretty much most of them tonight. And when Chicago has the ball, they capitalize. When Dutch Lions has it, it's like they need perfect passing to get that shot on goal. And sometimes when you play teams like Chicago City, that okay shot, not that great shot, is the way to win, because you're not always going to have that perfect shot with limited opportunities. Meanwhile, Chicago looking to clear. Right-footed boot, touched by Chicago. Left-footed kick. Not enough velocity on it, and Dutch Lions read it. Off the right foot, dribbling it forward. Sent over to the touchline. Stop and go move. Out in front. Trying to get it with Chicago City, but couldn't. Off the left foot, tap back to the touchline. Takes the pass. And trying to center that ball, but off the foot. And they're going to say it was last touched by Dutch Lions. Goal kick. As we'll get an exact time for you guys. At 32:15. Off the chest. Kicked forward. Salazar comes up to get it. He's out of the box. Has to get back in quickly. That's a good move that time by Lyndon Hu. Wondering who scored, it wasn't Lyndon. And we don't know if Lyndon's favorite book is Horton or Here's a Who. Right now by Mensa. Ender with it. Footed boot. Dutch Lions steals. Throw-in coming up. It'll be Chicago City's one. If you're just joining us, a goal off the set piece. And a great lead kick to Cisneros is where we stand. The first goal was a header. Second, a clean boot off the foot of Cisneros. That's sent over to Sudeth. Sudeth, right-footed kick, a lot on that. Little off target. Accuracy key in the game of soccer. And a foul committed by Chicago City. 2-0 lead for Chicago. It's all 2-0 lead for Chicago today. Off a set piece and a header. That's where we stand right now. 40 yards from the goal, tap kick. Lead kick, in fact, over to Barriga. Barriga's lead pass. Trying to steal that time with Chicago City. They get it. City with it. Over to the sideline. Played right now by Mensa. Mensa's right-footed boot. Past the midway line. Mensa still with it on his left foot. Then switches over to the right. Sent over to the touchline. Past the 40. Switching over from right to left. And then sending it over to the touchline. Between the 40 and the 50. And then over back to Sananu. Little tap kick. Sending it to Ender. Ender on his foot. Ender with it, and then sent it forward. Played over to Mensa. Sudeth goes after it, but it's sent forward. No one home to boot it. and Salazar will smother it up. In the 36th minute, not a lot of free kicks, injuries, or any of that, so I doubt we'll have more than 2 minutes of extra time. Foul committed that time by Dutch Lions, a little over the back call. It was committed by Preston Huitron. Axel Alejandre fakes the kick, and then he gets it to his number 6 teammate. That time in Lucas Ender off the foot of Mensah. Alejandre's boot, sending it forward. Going after it was Warden. High arching ball. Ender after it off his chest. Over to Sinanu as he does a turnaround kick. Closest Dutch Lions player to was Marquez. Out in front. Tap and go move. Good setup. That was sent over to Vieira. And now back to Who to Alejandre. As Alejandre's right-footed kick to the sideline. As they take their time to Chicago City, out in front, off the head of Dutch Lions. Not the place to head it, though. Straight up forward, and easy steal that time for Chicago City. Right-footed boot, out in front. Dutch Lions heads it the opposite direction, then headed to the sideline. And now after it is Michael Rogalski. Losing his footing. Who after it? Both of the 14s actually after it. And now played by Alejandre. Alejandre with a stop-and-go move. Little tap kick, then booted over to the 45-yard line. Sinanu with it. Stops his momentum. Played over to Alejandre. And then over to the sideline to Rogalski. Rogalski with it. Now over to Who. Lyndon Who with it. 3 players around him. Back to Rogalski. Sinanu with it, trying to get in the way of that passing lane, but couldn't. Off the foot, that time of Ender. Now over to Sinanu. Sinanu with a full head of steam. Tap kick, headed away. Ball still loose, up in the air. Header, and Dutch Lions steals. Off the chest, Dutch Lions trying to make it count. And they'll keep it as a foul committed by Chicago City's Axel Alejandre. And if he keeps committing fouls like that, Charlie Latshaw might give him the axe. Over to the touchline. And it's last touch that time by Chicago. Trying to keep it in with Cisneros with one of the 2 goals today. In the 39th minute, 2-0 lead. For Chicago City SC. Near the midway line. Off the foot. Try to get it that time is Chicago. They get it. Now obtained by Dutch Lions. Here comes Dutch Lions. It was off the foot that time of Bucalini. Slow moving ball stolen away by Chicago City. Keeping it is Who. Booted over that time to Mensah off his chest. Mensah with it inside the 20. Mensah on his right foot out in front. And just a little bit too much on it. Read well. That time by Dutch Lions. Off the chest. And then sent over. Nice move. And then switching directions. Sending it back to Sinanu. Over to the touchline. Played right now by Chicago. Now to Alejandre. Kicked over to Ender. Ender with it. Booted over to the 20-yard line. It was off the foot. That time of Sudeth. And then booted over to Ender. Ender with it. Over to Sinanu. Inside the 40. Back over to Sinanu. He's got Ender on his right. Sends it forward instead. As a slow-moving ball. Here comes Chicago City over to Ender. Ender's got Mensah on his right. Out in front. to Warden, who's been shut down most of the day. Off the head, loose ball, foul committed by Chicago City here in the 41st minute. Oh, crap. Now over. I'll fix that. Gotta fix that on my screen. 41. Out in front to Chicago City. And now played by Dutch Lions. Now picked up by Chicago City at the 45. Sent over that time to Mensah. Mensah falling to the turf that time was Max Vieira. Dutch Lions was after it. Past midway line. Dutch Lions with it. Inside the 30. Stops his momentum. And then sent back. It was played that time by Alex Berger. To the touch line. Inside the 20. Crap. Inside the 20. And then cleared that time by Chicago. Barriga with it. Barriga trying to split through the D. His kick. And I don't know. Looks like both players going after it. They're going to call it on Alejandre. Dutch Lions down too, so they're going to hurry as we're now in the 43rd minute. Alejandre doesn't like the call, but we have to play on. Berger. He was guarded that time by who? As Warden after it. Now played by Dutch Lions. Booted over, up in the air. Dutch Lions after it, off the chest. And it'll be Chicago City ball. And we'll play soccer for another 2 or 3 minutes. Appreciate everybody watching today. Thanks for being flexible since Mother Nature was not with us. And it stinks because just when we canceled it, it stopped raining. It's beautiful, but it's too late at that time. Remember, it's 20 minutes for every siren. And we heard about 3 of them in a span of 10 minutes last night at Loyola University, Hoyne Field. Overcast tonight, but no rain, thank goodness. And just a pretty good night for soccer overall. Off the head, and right now was played by Christian Marquez up in the air. Sananu off his head, and it's headed out of bounds. It'll be a throw-in coming up for Chicago Dutch Lions. If you guys like dad jokes out there, why does a Chicago City player not need a date? Darn it, I ruined it. Why does a Chicago soccer player not need a date? Because they'd rather go Dutch. Thank you, thank you. I'm here till Tuesday. Try the veal. By the way, like I said, click on the circle button, either at the top right, on a phone or tablet, and then click on the circle button at the bottom right if you're on a laptop. In the 46th minute, 2-0 lead for Chicago. And that'll do it. Not a lot of extra time, just 33 seconds in general. 2-0 lead for the unbeaten Chicago City Lions. We'll be back after this here on SBS, a broadcasting network for everyone.
There are only two kinds of people in this world. Those who get committed and those who don't.
Before you find yourself in a housing standoff, get committed. Visit our website to learn more.
Before we celebrated this special night, before we fell in love with our home all over again, we searched for a company to handle our entire remodel, from architecture and material selection to permits and complete construction with impeccable design. We found Heirroom.
Visit the Heirroom Design Build Center in Lincolnwood to explore your home's potential. Heirroom. Architects, builders, remodelers. Your project begins at heirroom.com.
So one more time, we're doing a scissors, and then a quick double tap. And accelerating away at pace.
People who come to cricket stay with cricket.
I'm a farm manager, and I'm always here. My service is reliable thanks to cricket.
Reliable service deserves a free 5G phone. Smile, you're on cricket.
My coach told me, you won't have success if you can't handle failure. That's big, not just for hitting, for anything in life.
Do you expect experienced, professional, and personalized attention from your building supply partnerships? You should. Are you getting the specific attention you need to help your business grow? You can. Introducing ICO Roof Pro and Grow through Richards Building Supply. As a professional small business, you need real solutions to achieve your desired growth outcomes. This requires more than sample boards, pricing, and on-time delivery, which sets the bar too low. You need more. To grow and win in this ultra-competitive environment, you need ultra-competitive solutions. With Richards Building Supply, get the personalized attention you deserve and need. Take advantage of incredible first-time user incentives. Gain discounted access to a host of our industry's most reputable marketing tools through a Roof Pro membership. And that's just the beginning. Don't believe us? Let us show you. ICO Roof Pro and Grow through Richards Building Supply.
You are a seasoned loan originator. You've been around the block and have the portfolio to prove it. You should work here. You expect to be compensated fairly. You've earned the freedom to do what you're good at and the support that makes it possible. You should work here. You're a builder of relationships, a cultivator of trust, a deliverer of dreams. You should work here. You are a team player, a culture enhancer, and on most days, a smile provider.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the second half of Chicago City against the Dutch Lions here on SBS, a broadcasting network for everyone. It will be a Chicago Dutch. Second half here at SBS, a broadcasting network for everyone. Played right now by blue team as it's sent over to the 30-yard line, now near midfield. Played right now by the men in blue in the second half as they're protecting a 2-goal lead. between the 30 and the 40. Played right now by Chicago City. Small, slow-moving ball. The men in blue with it. Inside the 40. And they were 45 yards away from the goal. Now they're a little bit closer. Out in front. As that loose ball, it's last touch by the Dutch Lions. Corner kick awarded for Chicago City. Here at beautiful Spartan Complex in Aurora, Illinois. Chicago City, it's all them tonight. They scored twice in the first half, early on in the second half. Straight up, off the head, loose ball. And it's headed away. It's going to be played by the goalkeeper that time, in Daniel Salazar. No post-game show today. Well, probably not. We'll see. It wouldn't, I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be tough tonight without the interns. Or, you know, because it wasn't a normal broadcast tonight. We do have normal ones. If you go on our website, sportsbroadcastsolutions.com, where we can always have field reporting regardless. Slide tackle, loose ball. It's picked up by Dutch Lions. Out in front, getting in the way of that is Chicago City. Now out in front. Loose ball, Dutch Lions looking to steal. As here comes the home team, Chicago. Dutch Lions. Now it's to the visiting Chicago team. As it's played by the goalkeeper, now Alex Flowers. He's been good. I mean, Wayman is still their best goalkeeper, but Flowers, they need him in the postseason. He's a good guy to have. Good thing about Flowers, too, is his teammates rally around him. You don't see a lot of shots on goal when Flowers plays. The defense limits opportunities. You could say that about a lot of opponents that Chicago has played. The only game that we've done, as we only do the home games for Chicago City, only game that Chicago got outshot was the Des Moines Menace match. And Chicago won 3-1 thanks to a penalty kick. Then they won 2-1 on the road. That's where we stand right now. Final reminder to click on the circle button either at the top right or the bottom right of your screen. And you can watch it in 720. Booted over to the touchline. Good move. Trying to get it through the D. No look pass. No one home to retrieve it as there was no trailer on the play. Chicago keeps it though. Shot partially blocked over the top of the nets. And it'll be a corner kick awarded for Chicago City. As Salazar has to get back into his net. Mensah taking his time. No need to rush. You're up 2 goals. You want to have the perfect set piece here, as this would really put a knife into the hearts of the Chicago Dutch Lions fans and the players. Mensah's right-footed boot. He's got Ender as well as Sedano out in front. Up in the air, header just a little bit wide. Good attempt though by Chicago City, who usually plays their home matches at Lions for Up Sports Complex in Chicago. Dutch Lions, this is their home pitch, even though we're in the suburbs. Right off 88. Off the head, loose ball, kicked up in the air. Off the chest, loose ball at the 30. Played by the Dutch Lions off the foot of a Chicago City player. And I don't know. They say handball, Chicago City. Meanwhile, played right now by the Dutch Lions, Christian Marquez. Over to the touchline, played by Thompson. Out in front, kicked away by Chicago City. And now City will play it in front of their netminder. Off the chest. Sidney Warden wants a call, and he'll get it. The British guy gets the benefit of the call, and Warden will have the throw-in. Oh, no. My bad. They called it before the ball went out of bounds. So it'll be a free kick, and Warden just plays it back to Sinanu. Past the 40. As Sinano calls for it and gets it. Sinano, as he plays it over that time to Rogalski. Off the foot of who, back to Rogalski. And then booted in front. Mensah, the intended target, up in the air. Off the head. Near the touchline. Chicago City will keep it in. Dutch Lions trailing by 2. Here in the second half. Both goals scored in the first half. Dutch Lions steal. Kicked over to the touchline. Chicago City steals. Off the foot. And then booted over to the midway line. Played right now by Mensah. Over to Rogalski. Near the 10-yard line. A lot of action there at the 10. Rogalski keeps it in at the touchline. To the midway line, off the foot. Sent up, good send. It was off the foot that time of D'Argento out in front. City with it still. And a lot of things happening, but they say that it was legal. Chicago City with it out in front. Off the head. And good job playing the outside part of the body. Playing the hips well by the Dutch Lions. Good body position. Outside body control. Forcing Chicago away from the ball. Cisneros was the closest Chicago City attacker to it, but played well by Jared Sanave. As it's a goal kick by Salazar. He looks for Sanave. It's a tough kick, and I usually don't agree with those. I understand why you do them, but they're just so hard to achieve. Unless you can get that ball low to the ground, it's so hard to take it off the chest, keep the ball in, and then kick it back to a teammate. It's like a turnover waiting to happen. We've seen that the Midwest Premier League goalkeepers like to do that too, and it's hard to keep that ball in. Meanwhile, foul committed by Chicago City. Yellow card against Chicago. Not happy with the call, but he'll have to live with it. That's Ben Sudeth. As we're here in the 55th minute. Free kick awarded for Chicago Dutch Lions. Ben Sudeth from Chicago State. He's a former Cougar. Positions midfielder. He's from West Chicago, Illinois. West Chicago, of course, won the state title not too long ago. Sophomore at Chicago State, appeared in 17 matches, started all of them back in the fall of 2021. He was named to the all-final team when West Chicago won the state championship in 2019. Stolen away by Dutch Lions. Tough touch kick off the foot of Cisneros. Trying to steal. That time getting in the way of it was Alex Berger. Off the foot of who? Loose ball. Falling to the turf, looking for the call. Nothing issued. Oh boy. The Dutch Lions were looking to push quickly. Ref wasn't ready to issue the free kick. And how about this? Ben Sudath grew up in Seoul, South Korea. He's a pre-physical therapy major. And his favorite food is tacos. Favorite team, FC Barcelona. His favorite player is Javier Mascherano. Free kick, meanwhile, for the Dutch Lions. Try to get one of their better players get involved in the offense. I don't know about that. I don't like that. I understand help wasn't there, and it looked like it was going to get stolen by Chicago City, but the problem with that is it wastes time. The ball boy's got to give you another ball, and it gives the ball back to Chicago. I get it, though. If it's stolen, it could be a breakaway. It could be an odd man rush, but you don't want to waste time when you're down 2-0. 2-0 is like a 3-0 lead in a hockey game. It's just so hard to come back from. And so the less time you waste, the better, and kicking that out of bounds. But break for Dutch Lions. Chicago couldn't do much with it on their possession. It's back to the Dutch Lions off the chest. At the touchline, Chicago City after it. Slide tackle attempt, unsuccessful. Free kick awarded for Chicago Dutch Lions. It's getting a little bit darker here in Aurora University. Out in front, chance for Chicago City on it. Salazar after it as well. Stops the momentum and plays it back to his midfield. Midfielders of Chicago City with it now. Inside the 35. 40 yards from the goal. And just slipped and fell. Almost swung and missed on that shot. Barely got anything on it. Dutch Lions with it now. Slippery turf right now. Dutch Lions, something happening right now for them. They're gaining meters, gaining yards, however you want to slice it. They're gaining position on this Chicago City team. Here comes Dutch Lions. Up in the air. And kicked high up in the air that time by Chicago City. A lot on it. No one home to get it. Two 2-0 lead for Chicago City here in the 60th minute. Throw-in that time by the Dutch Lions. Off the body. Then a throw-in. After at that time was Sananu off the chest. Throw-in awarded for Sananu. Mensah with it over to Sananu. As his pass to the 20-yard line. As he now finds D'Argento. Looking for who and gets it to him. Tap kick to the touchline. And then sent up to Warden. Off the foot to the touchline. Kick back, loose ball, slow-moving ball, in fact. Warden will steal. Here comes Chicago's shot. Not much on it. Easy save for Salazar. But Warden with a good steal, just couldn't finish the play. To the touchline off the right foot. Cisneros got a piece of it. Who with it as well. D'Argento out in front to Warden. He was trying to split through the D, couldn't do it. And a foul committed that time by D'Argento. Ref says to calm down. We're all friends here, kind of. It's the inter-city rivalry match. It was in Chicago, as one of the few times that a team will have two matches against the same team at the same pitch. As Chicago played last night at Loyola, Mother Nature didn't cooperate, and now they're here tonight at Aurora University. Up in the air to midfield, off the head. Loose ball going after it is Chicago City. The goalkeeper gets out of his net. As good job that time by the goalkeeper in Alex Flowers working on the shutout. Off the foot, played by Dutch Lions. After it was Cisneros, and then it was off the foot that time of Bianco. Now played that time by Sinave, who had a nice slide tackle earlier. Sinanu, as well as Bianco, was after it. Nope, sorry, that's Andrew Juarez. It'll be a free kick awarded to Lucas Ender. Sinanu will play it instead. Tap kick over to Alejandre. Sinanu to Mensah. Mensah with it. Out in front. Great pass. And just not as fast as he'd want to have it, but Dutch Lions was kind of stuck in the corner, really nowhere to go, and it's really hard to tap that kick to the other side of your heel and get it back to the goalkeeper. So even when you can't get the pass where you wanted it to go, it's hard for Chicago Dutch Lions to steal, send it back to the keeper, and they got the throw-in and trying to keep possession for at least another couple minutes if they can. Up in the air, Dutch Lions heads it straight up. Chicago City in control right now, working on the undefeated season. Nobody saw it coming, including myself, but Chicago City is the favorite to win it all, knock on wood. First things first, got to beat Fort Wayne. But for now, Chicago City, not thinking about that, just thinking about winning one at a time. And then they go to Wichita. That's going to be a tough match. Wichita played them tough at IIT. And this time it's at Wichita's home pitch. Wichita with nothing to play for, but they'd like nothing better to avenge that loss in Chicago. Remember, it was nothing than a terrible decision. It was a headbutt. That was the red card. Chicago scored twice with FC Wichita down a man, and that was it. Chicago City maintained their undefeated season, but Wichita outplayed them as that shot a little bit wide. And how will Chicago answer, knowing that they're probably going to get FC Wichita's A game? Inglés, por favor. I'll have to use the Google Translate if you go on the chat. But we do appreciate Carlos Antonio Figueiredo Rosa watching. Thank you, Mr. Rosa. Header, right in stride, chance for City, shot just a little bit high and wide. Salazar had to go out of his net to try to deflect that ball, and the top left was exposed but couldn't score. Once again, a corner for Chicago City, where they have done very well today on those. We don't know if Cisneros has scored twice. He at least has one goal tonight. And Chicago scores again. Incredible. The undefeated season very much alive. And unless something crazy happens, it's going to be a win for Chicago tonight to go to 11-0. What are we at? 67. 03. 68. Spinorama move. Near the 40-yard line, which means 50 yards away from the goal. 3-0 Chicago City. Dutch Lions has just had really no answer for Chicago today. At the touch line, booted over, trying to keep it in. And Thompson just not able to do that. Flowers, he's been great. Had a shutout against FC Wichita. He was going to get the start last night. Then it rained too much, thundered, tornado warning, whatever you can think of, it happened last night. He gets the start tonight. And a foul committed by Dutch Lions. Free kick for Mensa. Tap kick back to Mensa. As we turn the lights on here at beautiful Spartan Complex. That kick, trying to keep it in. And out of play. If you missed any of the goals, just hit the rewind button on YouTube. You can watch it as many times as you'd like. Dutch Lions playing it in their own territory. 60 yards away from the goal. Sanana with it on his left foot. Looking for Mensah. Mensah with it, switching over to his right, inside the 40. Mensah with it. 55 yards away from the goal. Chicago City with it, looking to waste time, maybe score again. Chance for Chicago out in front. And offside committed by Chicago City. Danny Salazar, well, not his best game, but 2 set-piece goals and a great kick by Cisneros. Maybe one of those set pieces he probably should have had, though. And now Dutch Lions just getting blown out at home. They played them tough. It was a 2-0 match earlier in the season. Chicago playing even better tonight. Out of bounds, as there'll be a throw-in awarded for Chicago. Throw-in. 60 yards away from the net. Chicago City still with it. Mensah with it inside the 30. Chicago scored twice in the first half. 1 in the second half. Dutch Lions with it in their own territory. Chicago City trying to steal off the touchline. And you love the intensity still by the Dutch Lions. Down 3, their season pretty much over, but they're still fighting hard for their head coach and the fans that come to see them play. It's an interesting complex here in Aurora. They don't have a visiting side, so you both sit on the same side. Kicked over to the right side of the pitch. Chicago City steals. City with it still. On the touch line, it was last touched by City. Dutch Lions throw in. Right now, it's played by Chicago City's Sananu. And then back over to Alejandre. Back to Sananu. To Mensah. Finding Alejandre. Spinning action on that ball. Over to the touchline. Finding his man to the 10-yard line, out in front, up in the air, stolen by Dutch Lions. Past the 20, and then off the foot, and a throw-in coming up for Chicago City. Off the chest, and it'll be a throw-in coming up. In the 77th minute, 3-0 lead for Chicago. We'll give you some information on Julian Cisneros in a second. Sorry, 70 yards away from the goal. Then sent over that time to whatever his name is, D'Argento. Looking forward is Martins coming off the bench today. Dutch Lions over to the touchline near midfield. And a foul committed, might be a yellow card. Yellow card against Keegan Thompson. Ill-advised, the frustration there, but just can't have that. Julian Cisneros, he's from Loyola University, Chicago. So he was playing on his home pitch last night. Well, for about 2 minutes, and then the rain kept pouring. At the 10-yard line, Chicago with it now. He's trying to find James Lynch. Finding Cisneros, ball loose. Cisneros trying to get it, blown dead by the ref. Both teams fighting for it. Chicago called for the foul. Out in front, kicked by Dutch Lions. After it, the goalkeeper. That time, and Alex Flowers. Off the foot. Nice job kicking it to himself. Cisneros with it. Cisneros on his left. Saved that time by Salazar. Tough angle shot, but a nice move by Cisneros kicking it to himself. We've seen some nifty footwork from him most of this season. Back to the goalkeeper that time, and Flowers. At the touchline, it's played right now by 25 in Sinanu off his right foot. Ball is sliding over to the 40-yard line. Still on his right foot. Kicked forward to the 40. Tapped over. It was played that time by Alessandro D'Argento. Now to midfield. Off the foot of Hu. Looking for Mensah, gets it to him. Back to Sinanu. As Sinanu feeds it to Mensah. Mensah with it, back to Sinanu. As he stops the ball briefly, takes his time, reassessing the situation to Mensah. Left-footed boot. And then boots it over back to Mensah. A little two-way game right now. Finding Hu in between the D. Hu with it. Past midfield. Lyndon Hu sends it over to the touchline. 3-0 lead right now for Chicago. Now 40 yards from the goal. 50 yards. Lead pass out in front. Chance for Chicago to Cisneros, and Salazar gets in the way of it. Salazar trying his best to avoid an absolutely dismantling loss. Right now they're getting killed, but don't want to make it worse. If you're the goalkeeper, you still play for pride's sake. Don't know if we'll have post-game today, but if you want to pick who you want for the post-game show, just go in the live chat, let us know. Probably would be Julian Cisneros. I don't think we've interviewed him all year either. Headed away. We had Flowers. Well, we got a pregame quote from Flowers, and we'll read that for you in a second. Flowers working on back-to-back shutouts, and if Jackson Wademan's not careful, it's possible he could lose his job to Alex Flowers out in front. It's a good problem to have when two goalkeepers are getting the job done, as Flowers and Wayman have most of this season. And kicking illegally was Mensah on the slide tackle. He illegally kicked Luke Bianco. Julian Cisneros, the redshirt junior from Elk Grove Village. Inside the 40, lead kick. Played in all 18 of Loyola Chicago's matches in 2022. He was a key role in the defensive core that allowed just 14 goals through the season. He scored his sole goal of the season, a game winner against Fordham in the 54th minute on October 29th. Racked up an impressive 5 assists. How about that? 5 assists to rank number 2 on the team. And his 7 points tied for 4th most on the team, while his 1,423 minutes played was 5th most. Lead kick out in front was last touched by Chicago. Try to speak in English, please. Don't speak other languages besides Spanish and Chinese. Kick a ball pod wants Julian Cisneros for the post-game show. As that goes wide. Appreciate Salah Altan watching, as well as Alejandro Oliveira. Lasse Eglund. Maybe Lassie. In the 85th minute, 3-0 lead for Chicago City SC. We're one-man banding it tonight, so thanks so much for joining us. We had a full crew last night, but once again, Mother Nature just was not cooperating. Thankfully, we did not get hit by a tornado. We were in a tornado warning for half an hour. It was not good. I was wondering if the roof was going to collapse and fall off, but it didn't. Meanwhile, 3-0 lead for Chicago in Aurora. It's Chicago against Chicago in the suburbs. If that's not ironic, I don't know what is. But that's what would happen if the Chicago Cardinals ended up playing the Chicago Bears. If the Bears indeed moved to Arlington, it'd be Chicago versus Chicago in the suburbs. Of course, if the Cubs or White Sox ever left. Always excited for the Cubs-Sox rivalry games. Those are occurring this year after the All-Star break. I wish they would play on the weekends, though. They used to play 3 on the weekends. I wish they would do best of 4 because there's only so many Guardians and Twins games that I like watching as a White Sox fan. It'd be nice to see 4 at Wrigley and 4 at guaranteed rate. They'd make so much money off it to have Thursday through Sunday games at Wrigley and guaranteed rate. But they refuse to do it, and it's just 4 games, and I'm not a fan of it. But I don't work in marketing, so can't make that decision. As it's kicked away that time by the Dutch Lions. In the 87th minute, it's all over but the crying. It's going to be a Chicago City win. We'll see if we get post-game today. Probably won't, but if we did, it would be Cisneros. But we're just down videographers. We're down a lot of... Down a lot of personnel today, so post-game's going to be difficult today. Out in front, off the foot. Not a lot of injuries, so probably not a lot of extra time today. Over to the 40. It was played briefly that time by Max Vieira. That over to the sideline. It was played by James Lynch. Now played by Andrew Juarez. Sorry, no. Alessandro D'Argento. And back to the goalkeeper in Salazar. Past the head that time of Ernest Mensah Jr. Matthew Sinanu from the University of North Carolina. He grew up in Chicago, though. He's from Neuqua Valley, which is in Naperville, so not too far away is where he grew up. Naperville's the next town over from Aurora. Didn't see any action in 2022. In 2021, he appeared in his first 3 matches, earning his first career start against UNC Wilmington. As that shot's blocked, Salazar will pick it up. And his family history is within the Ewe tribe from the Volta region of Ghana. As that does it, a win for Chicago City. Well-deserved, pretty much no extra time, not necessary, just not any injuries or stuff that we needed to stop the game for, plus both teams. This is kind of a friendly for them as Chicago has that big match in a couple days in Wichita. The Dutch Lions, they're just playing out the string. And it's a 3-0 win for Chicago today. So we'll make up our mind if we have post-game, but if you want to stick around, great. If not, that does it for our regular season of SBS. We do appreciate you watching this year. And, If we do some postseason games, check out those on the SBS YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already done so. We always post our on-demand content, including the all goals scored highlight reel today. But I'm by myself today, so for Oren Gilchrist, I'm Kyle Smith. That does it for our play-by-play broadcast. Post-game show might be coming up next. Otherwise, we might see you for the postseason match on the road in Fort Wayne. Have a good night, everybody.
We have always focused on providing great tasting meals that are meant to be shared without sacrificing value and quality. Our proudest moments were when we'd gather everyone around and share my abuela's tamales alongside family, friends, and co-workers.
Todo esté práctico y rápido para que la gente en cuanto llegue pues tenga su comida lista. No más es calentar.
From all of us at Del Real Foods, thank you for letting us be a part of your table.
Todd Helton, a man synonymous with the peak of Coors Field hysteria, the five-time All-Star and four-time Silver Slugger winner, was beloved by Rockies fans for his fantastic play on both offense and defense. One of the greatest Rockies of all time, his success has consistently been downplayed because of his home stadium. Helton's Hall of Fame case has been widely debated among the baseball community, with no conclusive decision. Just recently, this past January, the voters almost elected him into baseball immortality. He received over 72% of the vote for Cooperstown induction, but he needed another 3% of the vote to get into the Hall of Fame. This video will look into what factors help and hurt his case to earn his plaque in New York, and whether or not it's realistic for Helton to eventually make the Hall. Let's first do a statistics breakdown. Helton played for a very long time, nearly 2 decades, all for the Rockies, and was never an easy out once he arrived in the league. Through his first 10 seasons in Major League Baseball, Helton not only managed to walk more than strike out in 8 of the 10 aforementioned seasons, a very much appreciated quality in a young player, but he also managed an OPS, or on-base percentage plus slugging, above 1, settling in at a remarkable 1.04 OPS for the entire span. Oh, and let's go back to Helton having more walks than strikeouts. During his first season of playing in at least 100 games, Helton struck out 54 times and just walked 53 times. From 2000 to 2008, Helton walked more than striking out, with his worst season, quote-unquote, being the 1999 campaign, where he recorded 68 walks to 77 punch-outs. Out of all the first basemen who played at least 1,000 games from 1997 to 2013, his first and last year in the league, Todd Helton leads the pack by 4 points in OPS, beating out Hall of Famer Jeff Bagwell and future Hall of Famer Albert Pujols. One of his biggest strengths, his vision, was the catalyst that led to his success. His magnum opus was his 2000 season, where he hit for the percentage triple crown, leading the league in all three major stats: on base percentage, batting average, and slugging percentage. He hit a ludicrous .372, winning a batting title and having the third highest single-season batting average from 1990 to the 2000 decade. During that decade, he actually tied for third in terms of batting average. The only two players ahead of him are his teammate, in my opinion, the greatest Rocky of all time, Larry Walker, and all-time great Tony Gwynn with his abbreviated chase for 400. This came along with plenty of pop as well, slugging almost 700 with 103 extra base hits. In fact, this was the fourth most extra bases in MLB history and second most in the NL ever. It was also his breakout season, netting him his first All-Star game, but his MVP candidacy was probably hindered not only by his youth, not having been an established star, but also what is commonly referred to as the Coors effect. This is when accolades and statistics from Rockies players are seen with less legitimacy due to the thin air in Colorado, which allows for the ball to fly further than anywhere else. This has only increased as time gone on, with the Rockies playing their home games at Coors Field, with sabermetrics putting a higher emphasis on regulating stadium factors. Older players also benefited more prior to the Humiditor era. Beginning last season, all 30 MLB teams now have to store the game balls to control the inconsistencies between